Hello, Leaf Academy and Rewards Pro followers. Yes, so I'm talking about two different things now because this channel, Rewards Pro, is going to be all about behavior. Why? Because I am a behavioral expert and I'm going to explain what that means. But if you are tuned into this channel and you were expecting something on teaching, pedagogy, curriculum, you have to go to the Leaf Academy account, and if you need that link, just DM me and I will send it to you. So that account's going to talk all about curriculum, pedagogy, teaching, classroom strategies, techniques. I'm working on a book basically called the Teachers Playbook, which walks through the basics, the fundamentals of teaching, the practice of teaching, and how to become a highly effective teacher. I started a training program in my program, ran it for about 10 years, and I was able to coach teachers from ineffective to highly effective in 2 years. It's the fastest program in the United States, hands down, and it does work primarily because of my background in behavioral expertise, which is what this channel is all about. So Rewards Pro, we're going to talk about behavior. Now, I've been talking to a lot of teachers and I want to hear from parents. So if you are a teacher, you're an educator, you talk to parents on a daily basis, let them know about this channel, Rewards Pro. So I am coming out with a new product. Okay, it's going to be an offer. Now, it is what's called an at-home rewards plan, okay, or a program. I'm trying to actually build it out so that everything that parents need at home, they can get. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do. So if you know parents, and so we're talking about kids aged from 2 to 18, yes, teenagers. So if you're a parent of a teen, I definitely tell them to follow this account because this may be the lifesaver you need because let's face it, teenagers don't listen very much. So if you're looking to try to find a way to have a little bit more control over your children, this is the best way to do it. So what are we talking about? Now, I want to actually address this issue of motivation and not motivated because this seems to be a confusion for a lot of people. And so I'm going to really talk about that this week. If you have any questions, again, DM me, make a comment, let me know what you're thinking about. Like I said, I've been talking to a lot of teachers from across the country about how teachers are dealing with parents because parents are pushing back now. They're saying, we don't, no. You're more anxious than we are. I'm not concerned. Talked to one teacher who was trying to get the parent to do some more stuff at home so that their child would be prepared if they had to shut down. And as I was trying to tell the teacher, the parents they're taking a risk. They're saying, I don't have any more energy to do anything else. And I'm just betting that you're not going to shut down before June. So I'm taking that risk. You're the only one that's anxious. And to a certain extent, you have to understand where the parent's coming from. I kind of agree with them. Schools are not going to shut back down. It's not happening. So you're in whatever you're in from now through June. That's basically it. So if you're in hybrid, you're going to stay in hybrid from now through June. If you're in person, you're going to be in person from now through June. Like whatever you're in right now is going to be that way for the next several months. So just kind of strap in and get ready. Plan for July. That's all I can say. Just plan for July. But one of the biggest misunderstandings and misperceptions about motivation, especially kids, is that this, like, I'm unmotivated, or you're looking at a child and they're not doing their homework, they're not participating in class, they're not turning on their Zoom camera, they're not doing what all the other students are doing, and so we think, knee-jerk reaction, they're unmotivated or lazy, or there's some kind of issue that we can easily explain, and that's completely wrong. So what I want to be able to explain now is that there is psychological understanding as to what is actually happening. So the theory is the approach avoidance theory. And I want to talk about it because I'm trying to come up with more layman's terms for these psychological theories so that it's more accessible to parents. Because let's face it, parents don't have PhDs in psychology. And so what is approach and avoidance? What does that mean? So the theory and the research and where this all comes from, we're talking about Freud, we're talking about Skinner, we're talking about Pavlov, if you know Pavlov's dog. So we're talking about these psychologists that studied behavior and studied patterns and what was happening. And so what they came down to it is that there are two main motivations for human beings. And this basically came out of our survival of the fittest, Darwinism, evolution. How did we develop as human beings over the last 1,000 or so years in terms of what we do? And so there's two psychological motivations. And I'm using the word motivation because it's very important for behavior, or at least to understand behavior, that it comes back to these two motivations. You're either trying to approach something or you're trying to avoid something. Now, in layman's terms, and what I use in the at-home program is either you're trying to get or you're trying to escape. And I think that makes sense. Like, what am I trying to get, obtain, receive, I'm motivated towards, or what am I trying to get away from, escape, avoid, just flee? And so what happens is the misunderstanding and misperception is on the avoidance side, that when a kid doesn't do something, it looks like, well, they're not motivated. Wrong. They're motivated. They're just not motivated to get what you want. They're motivated to get out of what you want. And that's why there's a disconnect. So really what it comes down to is if you're a parent or you're a teacher and you have a kid or a student who's not doing what you want them to do, or they're not doing what other kids are doing, maybe your approach is flipped. Like it's the opposite of what you want to be doing. So if you're giving an assignment and a kid's not doing the assignment and you're going, but everybody else is doing the assignment, think about it this way. That kid's trying to avoid that assignment. If you can understand why they're motivated to avoid the assignment, you will have better insight as to how you can get them to actually do it. Now, I've been doing that for 20 years in classrooms, coaching staff and how to get kids to do things that they don't originally want to do. Now, it's not manipulation. I need to make that very clear. We are not talking about manipulating kids. We're talking about helping unlock their motivation to get something. Because I'm just going to be real frank with this. You have to have both. You have to have a healthy motivation to go for something as well as a healthy motivation to avoid something. You want to avoid negative, bad things. You want to avoid negative consequences. What we think makes sense is not the way that everyone thinks. That's where we get into trouble. See, so there's a misunderstanding with how laws work, and that's why some kids get into trouble, because we think that if we put it into law, that's a deterrent. No such thing. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. That's why punitive consequences do not work for kids that are avoiding something. They will avoid it at all costs. They don't care what your punitive consequences are. That's the least of their problems. If they're trying to avoid doing work, they will take the detention. If they're trying to avoid work, they'll take the 0. See, they'll take the 0. They'll take the F. They're like, absolutely, that's a trade-off I am totally okay with. So you have to understand that that's not the trade-off that you really want. Do you really want to give the kid an F? No, you don't. So don't give that as an option. I know. Really start to think about this. So like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years. And so in my school program, we didn't have Fs. Well, we did, but it was really hard actually to get an F in my school program. Like Like, you had to want to get an F, which means that you're motivated to get an F. So we actually reversed it. So if kids got Fs in my school, they were motivated to fail. So they wanted to get an F. And that's how I could actually sit down with a parent, with the teacher, and be like, your kid wants to fail. And now they have no argument. They're like, okay, I have to do something. I'm a parent. My kid wants to fail. Like, you're not making them fail. You're giving them every opportunity. This is now on them. And I'm the parent. Now, it's reflective of me. Like, why does my kid want to fail school? And so that's where you can actually start to have conversations with parents, because if failing is something that's purposeful, not as a result of, key. So hopefully I'm making sense. It'd be nice if I could do a Q&A, and maybe that's something, if you're interested, we could do a live Q&A, like a Zoom call, and just DM me, and maybe I can send out a link to do a live Zoom call Q&A and just answer your questions live, so that if you need help, we could get there. But again, kids that fail right now, it's a consequence. And they're very comfortable with that consequence. Because to be honest, what are they missing out on? Think about your curriculum. Think about what your school is actually teaching. So I'm in the middle of writing all of these different reports, and I just published an article on LinkedIn all about bias in the classroom. And so one of the keys is understanding, well, what is our perspective? Are we really looking at things in the full perspective, or are we just looking through one lens? Our bias. Now, everyone has bias. This is also behavioral. So this comes down to, again, Rewards Pro and the at-home program. So teachers and parents understanding, kids, you have to understand that your bias is leading you to a conclusion. It may be the wrong conclusion, but you're not going to see that unless you can see your child through a different lens. And that's typically what parents really liked about sending kids to me and my program along with my staff, because we were all trained the same way. We were all coached and we were all doing the same psychology. So when we talked to parents, we could show them, hey, you know what? Like, what you thought was wrong isn't really wrong. Like, actually, your kid is fine, but here is the obstacle. Like, and we could actually pinpoint it and say, this is the problem in front of them. So this is what we're going to work on. And for many parents, they were like, you're the first people to show me why my kid doesn't do well in school. Like, everybody else is just like, no, it's this and that and this, and they could never actually prove it. But when they came to us, because of, again, my background in understanding kids, understanding behavior, I could pinpoint it after a certain amount of time. Usually take about 3 weeks of observation from the teacher as well as me, plus our social working staff, to just kind of like get all the data together and say, you know what? This is who that kid is. This is what they're motivated to do. And this is why they're not successful. They're successful in certain things if it fits in their path. But if it doesn't fit in that path, they're going in the other direction. And you can clearly see that they're moving in the other direction when you can see it. But the only way to do that is to get outside of your bias. So if you can actually like remove yourself from yourself, which is really hard to do, but if you could actually get outside of your bias and say, oh, I see what you're saying. All the kids are moving in this direction, and this kid is moving in the opposite direction. Now you can actually ask the question, why? Why are they going the other way? And once you start asking that question, now if you can answer it, which takes some doing, but if you can answer that question, now you actually have solutions to say, okay, how can we turn that kid around, like literally turn their behavior around to move in the same direction as everybody else. And that's everything that my program did for 20 years, which is turn kids around to move in the right direction. And I know it sounds like magic. It does. It sounds like, oh, and trust me, I had experts all across my state, and we're in New Jersey, and so, we're considered, at this point in 2020, we're considered the #1 education state in the country. So I had experts from my state, so the top educators in the entire country, all going, what did you do? Sprinkle pixie dust on top of the kids? How did you turn this kid around? Understand that all of my students, 100% of my students, were economically disadvantaged. Yes, low socioeconomics. Racially discriminated against. Yes, that's African American and Hispanic kids, both male and female. And then lastly, all classified disabled. So you have already, from our society's perspective, 3 strikes and they're out. And they were out. They tossed them out in a nice way, and they sent them to me. In many cases, they said, good luck. In many cases, they said, we don't know what to do. And in many cases, they were like, go ahead, do your best. Do your magic. We don't know how you do what you do, but go ahead. Prove it. Prove yourself again. And unfortunately, because of the way our society works, we had to prove ourselves with each and every kid. We never got any respect. We never got any accolades. We never got thank yous. We never got anything that ever said, hey, you guys do a great job. It was all, you did a really great job on that kid, but we don't think you could do it with this kid. It was always, you need to prove yourself over and over and over again. And so after 20 years, that just became something that was normal for me. I don't expect anyone to ever believe what I say. Maybe it's a wall, maybe it's a problem. I will prove myself time and time again, because what I know works. It just works. It works. And it helps kids. And that's really, at the bottom line, isn't that the only thing that's important? So if you're sitting at home, maybe you're in the car, I don't know. Hopefully you're paying attention to the road. But if you're listening to this and you're saying, you know what, I know a kid that's struggling. Maybe they're failing, maybe they're not doing well, maybe they're under stress. This is a traumatic time with all of the upheaval and parents losing jobs, and maybe they're not getting as much of the attention that they used to get. They're certainly not going to school in the same way. So all of these changes can affect the kid, but they are not the reason they're not doing well in school. That's the bias lens. See, so you can't listen to the media. Not that they're bad people. They just don't understand. They don't understand what it is that they're reporting. And I've talked to reporters. They're not yet hearing it. They don't understand it well enough to understand exactly what I'm saying. They'll get there eventually. But it does take some time, because when someone says that a kid is not unmotivated, when it looks like they're unmotivated, you're kind of like in shock. Like, no, that kid doesn't like doing work. They're unmotivated. And I'm saying, no, they're motivated. They're not motivated in the way you are. They're opposite. They don't want to do what you want them to do. That's motivation. And in fact, they're digging in their heels. That's huge motivation. That means they're expending energy to not do something. That's a motivated kid. It's just the opposite direction. We want them to spend all that energy towards something that will help them, but they're spending all the energy on something that doesn't help them. So you're thinking that's completely irrational. That makes no sense. What kind of a person would do that? What kind of a person would do that? It's unimportant. It doesn't matter what kind. Who cares? Let's just deal with the behavior. We want kids to do homework. We want kids to do their work. We want kids to get good grades. Bottom line. Now, again, we're not talking about the quality of education at this point. That's on Leaf Academy. So we're not talking about quality of education. We're just talking about just doing the work. I'm going to say that the quality of the curriculum that you are teaching in class is a contributing factor. So if you're teaching multiplication tables in the most boring way, some kids are just going to tune out. It's you. You're the problem as a teacher. Sorry. It's the truth. Just because you like what you're teaching doesn't mean that everybody in your class is going to like what you're teaching. I mean, and that makes perfect sense, except that doesn't seem to be the rational thought. That every kid, so 100% of kids are going to like what you're doing. That's not reality. 100% of everyone doesn't like anything. So, if you're getting as a teacher, and for me in my program, when I did observations of staff, I was looking for 80 to 90% participation right from the start. So it's like, okay, you have the majority class. Now you deal with the smaller segment that's going, yeah, I'm not into whatever you're doing. So, okay, fine. Now you got the majority of class moving, and now you sit down with a smaller group of the kids who are going, what you're doing is not my bag. I do not care. Do whatever you want to do, but I will take the 0. And so I had to basically teach teachers to say there's no such thing as a 0. Trust me, the first 2 weeks of school, when a kid came into my program, they were angry. They were angry. I'd taken away all of their excuses. I'll take a 0. There is no 0. What? Well, what do you mean there's no 0? There's no 0. You have to do this work. Well, isn't there a deadline? Well, yeah, the deadline's the end of the marking period. What? Well, then I'll take it at the end of the marking period. I'll get an F. It was like, okay, but this is going to be sent home, and you're going to have a parent-teacher conference, and we're going to show your parent exactly everything that you need to do, and we're going to have you tell your parent, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to get an F. Purposely fail. It's not the teacher's fault. It's not anyone else's fault. It's my fault. And when you have that kind of a conference where the parent is looking at their own child and the child is telling the parent, I'm going to fail, guess what happens with the parent? They look at their kid and go, what are you, out of your mind? No, you're not going to fail. You're going to do this work. And for even the toughest kids, and I mean, I had some really tough kids, again, bravado, tough kids, I'll kick your ass, a whole thing, threatening. I had kids who threatened principals. I had kids who beat kids up in school. I had kids who were bullies. I have all those kids. For those kids, they're not telling their mom, yeah, I'm going to fail, Mom. They're like, over my dead body, you are going to do your work and you're going to like it. And again, if we give the support, if schools give the support, that kid's doing work. And that's what would happen, is we would take it and we'd flip it over and basically put the kid as the enemy of his mom. And to be honest, parents loved that. They were like, wow, I have control back. Like, my kid was out of control. They weren't listening to anything I had to say. But we now gave the parent the opportunity to have power. And that's an amazing thing. And I know parents really appreciated that. Now, that was the only thing we needed them to do. That I need to make that also clear. And that's where the at-home rewards program comes in, is it really limits what parents need to do. You don't have to teach your kid. That's the job of the school. That's the job of the teacher. You don't have to teach your kid. You don't have to sit with them and do the homework. It's unnecessary. Wait, hold on. Listen to me. If you're a parent, under my program, you don't have to do the homework with your kid. Because in some cases, especially for me, I remember, like, there are certain things in school, like especially mathematics-wise, I don't remember how to do them. So how am I going to sit and help a kid do it when I don't remember how to do it? In science, like, I can't help a kid in some things in biology. I certainly can't help in chemistry. Chemistry was well over my head. Physics, I understood much better, and life sciences I could do. So there were certain subjects that I could help and certain subjects I can't help. But I can't sit and help a kid do everything. And as a parent, you can't either. So parents feel kind of out of place because they're like, I don't remember this. How am I supposed to help you do your homework? What's the school doing? What's the school teaching you? So we didn't want the parent to feel out of place. We just wanted the parent to give support so that the kid knew they had to do the homework, and if there was a problem, they should write down their questions on the homework and give it to the teacher. And the teacher could then get that feedback and be like, okay, so you didn't know how to do this one. That's great. That's great. See, teachers want to know what the problems are. It's the opposite of how we work in society. Most people do not want to know problems. If you're working for a company, your boss does not want to know your problems at all. You have to solve your problem. But that's not the way schools work. That's not the way teachers work. Teachers want to know every little detail about what's wrong. So if kids write down notes and be like, okay, and you let's say you get 10 problems. Let's say you're doing a math homework assignment and you have 10 problems and you do 5 and that's easy. That was, you know what? I got all 5 of those, but I can't do these 5. If you write down, I can't do this problem because I don't understand what order these things are supposed to go in, and you give that to the teacher, teacher's like, great, that's what we're going over today. And the kid's going to be like, well, then I know how to do this then. Like, that's exactly how school works when it's structured properly. And if parents understand that, then parents can also add in to their kid and say, why can't you do this? Not why can't you do this, but why can't you do this? What is the obstacle in your way? It's no longer a judgment question. It's an inquisitive question. What's the issue? What's the roadblock? What's preventing you from doing it? And I'm telling you right now, if you have those types of questions and conversations with kids, you will see what seems to be unmotivated children turn into very motivated children. Again, from our own biased lens. So motivation, it goes from avoidance to approach. It goes from I don't want to do this to okay, I'll try to do this. And turning that kid around, turning them from avoidance to approach means that they're now moving in the same direction or in the direction that you're looking for. Again, our biased lens is looking for kids that are ambitious. They have a goal. We have a goal-oriented society. So what happens is when we meet people that don't have goals, we look at them and say they're unmotivated. It's completely wrong. They're motivated. They're just not motivated by goals. They're motivated by avoiding goals. They're on the opposite side. So what it seems like is everyone else is moving this way and they're moving this way. Does that make sense? Hopefully that's making sense. So what you need to do, and that's sort of where the program comes in. So for 2-year-olds, we're going to do something different than we would do for teenagers. So let me just do the preview for 2-year-olds, or the little ones. Again, little ones, cute ones. So for them, and we all know the terrible twos, no, mine. You know, we go from 2 to 3 where everything's mine. So 2 is everything's no. 3, everything's mine. 4, they're starting to learn how to share. And when we get to kindergarten, that's actually a big learning lesson, which is we share everything and how we work together as a team and cooperation and all of these social skills, pro-social skills that we want to teach in kindergarten. Now, for kids that go to preschool, they're getting previews of these social skills techniques, like how do you share? What is limited time? Like, so if there's blocks, you can't play with the blocks all day because other kids want to play too. So that's where you get stations. And so you move kids from one station to the next station so they understand there's something called a limit. A limit. You can't just do what you want to do whenever you want to do it. You have to be able to work within a structure. And it helps for kids to understand that. So for 2-year-olds, that's all that the at-home rewards program really does, is it provides real structure for parents at home. Very simply, structure at home. And again, the core foundation of at-home rewards is all about positive reinforcement. The one thing that parents must have with their kids is they must have a trust bond with their children. And it has to be based on positive support. Because if you do, especially if you do it when they're little, by the time they get to teenage years, you don't have teenagers that are doing their own thing and you have no idea what's going on. And literally, you may be afraid for their life because you're like, they're running around. I don't know where they are. God knows what they're getting themselves into, and they could be doing dangerous things. And many teenagers do not think things through. They kind of just end up in situations, and at the end, they're like, I don't know how that even happened. Like, how did I get here? And they don't see that they made like 4 different decisions, and it's like they all went down that road, and they're just like, no, I made one decision and I ended up here. They don't even see the other little decisions that they made. That's how scary it is to be a teenager, because they're just not aware of what's going on. Now, not all. Some teenagers are a little bit more development in maturity and psychology and the prefrontal cortex. So up here, they can understand decision making and cause and effect a little bit more than most other teenagers. So they don't make those decisions. They're like, you know what? If I do that, that happens. I'm not going to do that. The risk reward on that is not good. But most teenagers cannot assess and analyze risk reward. They're not adults. Please be understanding of that. The physiology and the neuroscience to that, human beings are developing till about the age of 25 at the prefrontal cortex of decision making. So, it's not innate. We have to learn, maybe I shouldn't do that. So what parents can actually do is, if they have a better bond with their kid and there's more trust, you can kind of supplant and supplement that decision making when they're older. Again, as a teenager, not older as an adult, but as a teenager, when your kid says, I'm going to go out, you can say, where are you going? And they're like, well, I'm going with a couple of my friends. We're going to go hang out. Okay, where? And they tell you because they trust you. Because the kid needs to trust you as a parent, and they tell you where, and then you can go, okay, that's safe. And they go, great, okay, so I can go. And they go, yes, you can go. Now, there's also that other trust issue with, if your kid trusts you and you say, yeah, that's good, that's safe, your kid now feels, I have your seal of approval, I'm okay. Now, you're not getting that with the little ones. The little ones do whatever you want them to do, which is why they're cute and lovable, but they also will just keep going after you. Why? I'm sure if you have little ones, you know what that's like. They just never stop. So that's what you do at the younger age. You just create this structure, and basically you have your kids do things that you can then observe, and then when they do it well, again, it's all positive, you then reward them. And you say, hey, that was a great job, you're doing a great thing. And it builds self-confidence, self-esteem, and they will take on more academic risk in school because they now have the self-esteem and confidence in school to say, okay, I'll try this. Because school is scary. Like, I don't know if you can understand. Again, everybody went through school. But when you're a kid in school, every day is new. Every day. K to 12, you're never repeating anything. It's a problem. We should be repeating more things than we are, but we're not. We're always teaching something new, which means that kids on a daily basis are out of their depth. There's never a sense where they get their feet planted and go, okay, I feel good. They're always uncomfortable. It is actually why there's so many problems in school, because kids never feel comfortable when they're in school. We'll work on that. That's on Leaf Academy. But here we're just talking about behavior. Now let's talk about teenagers. I love At Home for teenagers because this one is fun. So teenagers want independence. Okay? So little ones, they don't even understand what independence is. They just literally depend on you for everything. And they are attached, like they're grabbing a hold of you and going, lead me around, mommy. That's it. They don't want to leave your side. But for teenagers, they don't want anything to do with you. They want independence. But in reality, they don't have the capacity for independence. They don't have a job. They can't afford to live on their own. They can't feed themselves. They can't clean. They can't do anything unless you give them those opportunities. And that's actually what the at-home rewards program is all about for teenagers, which is actually teaching them how to be independent. Now, I wish my parents would have done this for me, because when I went to college, I didn't know how to even do my own laundry. Yeah, it was pretty bad. My mom was an angel, an absolute angel. She used to do my laundry. It's horrible, like seriously horrible. I can't believe how spoiled I was. And I didn't even realize it until I got to college, when I had friends that were doing laundry and they were like, aren't you going to do your laundry? And I was like, I don't know how. And they were looking at me like, wow, you are a spoiled brat. Like seriously spoiled. So again, you have to kind of look at it and say, okay, well, what can we do? Now, what do kids need? What do teens need? They need money. So you combine independence with money. There should be no such thing as an allowance. Any parent that's doing an allowance is doing bad parenting. I'm going to say it. Here you go. Here's the quote. If you give your kid an allowance, you are a bad parent. End of story. Should never be allowances. Kids need to earn money. However much you can afford. I guarantee you probably spend way more money than you realize on your kids. And what you should not be doing is spending that money. Instead, put it into a little fund, put it into a bank account, save it up, and say to your kid, here you go. This is how much you could earn in total. Here you go. These are all the things that you need to do. And typically there's 4 or 5 things that I like parents to do. Again, we structured in the program so that you know, like, oh, this works, this works, this works. And so they have something to do every single day. And if they do those things, they get money. And at the end of the week, basically they get a paycheck from you. It's not an allowance. It's a paycheck. They did work, and you're paying them for the work. It really helps with independence, and it helps them feel that they're in control, as well as the self-confidence. I mean, the boost that they get when they get that money at the end of the week, it's just like when you go to work and you get that paycheck, you're like, yeah, I did it. Now, you can, if you want, it's totally up to you. It depends on your own kid. You know your kids better than I do. Some of them need help with budgeting and saving. Some of they do. They're going to blow it. As soon as you give them the money, it's gone. They've spent it already. If you want to help them with budgeting and understanding money, and savings and investing and all that other stuff, you could certainly do that. I don't recommend forcing them into that. It's fine. Remember, they earned it. They're allowed to spend it any way they want. Remember, that's independence. And maybe they need to learn and come to you and go, I'm broke. At which point, then you can have that conversation. Do you not see how much money you're earning? Like, you're earning $20 a week. Like, at the end of the month, like, you really, where are you spending your money? Like, do you understand how to budget? Do you understand how to spend money? Do you understand what it all means? But now you have a context because they literally have a limit to what they can do. And now you can even do incentives where you want to know something, or you want to earn an extra $1 or $5 a week. Yeah, I do. I want to earn an extra $5 a week. Think about the behavioral context. You're now getting a kid who originally might have said, I'm not doing nothing, right? Who's now going, okay, what do I need to do to make an extra $5 a week? Well, I want you to take out the garbage every day, and I'll give you $5 a week. Okay, I'll do it. They will do whatever you want because that's an extra $5 a week. So you don't have to do the garbage anymore. You want them to clean the dishes? I'll give you an extra $5 a week to clean the dishes every day. All right. See, teens, they have their own motivations. They want independence and money. That's what you have. You have independence and money. But you can't just give them independence and you can't just give them money. It has to start building. They have to start learning what that means. And by going through this working process at home, and if you tie it to school, which is what I always had the parents do, because with school it's natural. They have to do their homework. That would be the first thing. So for my kids, every day, have to do homework 5 days a week. That was and for some parents, again, where I'm talking about low socioeconomic. So some parents, it was like 25 cents to do their homework. Maybe the kid for the total week was getting like $10 a week. Again, for the total year, that's like $400, $500. For some parents, they could do a little bit more, But again, the budget isn't the issue. It's the process. It's that they do it and they get paid. They do it and they get paid. That's exactly what you want them to learn, because when they get out of high school, that's what a job is. You go to work, you get paid. You go to work, you get paid. Now, hopefully, intrinsically, their pride comes in and you start wanting to do more work, because that's what's going to lead to more money. In any job, it doesn't matter. If you work for, there's a lot of misconceptions about work. If you work for McDonald's, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're getting an entry-level job at McDonald's, that's fine. You should be motivated to become a supervisor. If you're not, if you work for McDonald's and you're not motivated to be a supervisor, you have a problem. Not fast food, you have a problem. Anybody that works in any business, if you work on the floor at Macy's, if you work, if you work at Foot Locker, if you work any minimum wage job, if you're not motivated to become a supervisor, then you have a problem. If you're satisfied with making minimum wage, you have the problem. There's nothing wrong with the minimum wage job, but you can't make it your career. There are opportunities to move up the ladder in every single company. So pick the company. It's fine. Entry level minimum wage is your foot in the door. There is nothing wrong with that. At any age, if you're 30 years old, if you're 40 years old and you've lost your job, fine. I know there is a book called Starbucks Saved My Life. This was a 50-year-old who basically lost his career and went to go work for Starbucks as a barista. And he worked his way up, because that's what it is. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters where you're going. Behavior. It's a process. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, I'm gonna launch this thing. Please DM me, share it. Have everybody follow. Again, Rewards Pro is all about behavior. Leaf Academy, which is the other account now, that's going to be all curriculum, pedagogy, teaching practice, and hopefully helping schools become better places. We'll also do all the business stuff there. But here as well, behaviorally for businesses, we're going to do, and maybe next week, I'll see how far I get with launching this at-home rewards program. So hopefully I'm going to be getting it out before the end of March. So I want to let everybody know. So tell everybody, let's get this shared out, follow, DM me, make comments like, hey, what's this about? If we need to do a live Zoom Q&A, I'll do that. Again, I'm here to help. Let's do that. But hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that's helpful. And again, I want to thank you so much for joining me this week on Tuesdays with Schwartz. So I'm going to say adieu and go, this is D.Scott Schwartz signing off.